Hey, good evening, guys. I want to share this clip with you. I think it's a really important clip regarding Kaylee's dad, Steve, who has been very vocal and speaking out about the investigation, lack of transparency, and how he wants things to run differently. I totally understand his frustration. I think some of his frustrations are aimed more at the university. We'll talk about that on the next show. This is a really important and interesting clip that comes from a police chief who is sharing his experience in particular with a case that he was on. And he explains how the speaking out with the media may not be as helpful as Kaylee's father thinks it is. Anyway, leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about this.
Washington State University's police chief, Mr. Gary Jenkins. He is the former police chief in Pullman, Washington. Now, both Pullman and WSU's campus, less than 15 minutes from Moscow. Chief, we thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We're hearing from Kaylee's family. They've been very outspoken recently. They are obviously frustrated, very upset by this, understandably. But is the information that they are sharing potentially complicating this investigation?
The more details that leak out, the more that can negatively impact an investigation and potentially a prosecution. The more that a suspect knows what the police know, and they're more likely to destroy potential evidence that they might possess, might make suspect interviews more difficult for the police, and it can also impact witness statements.
Well, you are a police chief here. Do you think investigators will ask them to stop talking to reporters?
I suspect that they've already done that. I feel for the families. I can't imagine what they're going through, and I know it must be very frustrating. But Moscow PD wants to solve this case. They don't want to compromise the investigation. They don't want to compromise the prosecution. So it really is helpful not to release any kind of details of the case.
Yeah, and we know ultimately the goal here is to bring those families justice, to find the killer here. Chief, how hard is it for police to establish a timeline? Because we know some students left for break and then just have not come back.
It does complicate investigation. When I was at Pullman PD, we had a significant case involving college students that occurred right around the same time of the year, just prior to Thanksgiving and the Christmas break. And it really slowed our investigation and lengthened the time it took us to complete a thorough investigation. So it does impact the investigation.
And Chief, we know the sense of unease certainly stretches further than Moscow. We mentioned that you are in Washington State. You were about 15 minutes outside of Moscow there. Are you seeing fewer students on your campus?
I do know of some individual requests for remote learning between students and their professors. But I think by and large, most of our students are back on campus.
All right, and the last question for you, Chief. Do you have any concerns about how this investigation is proceeding at this point?
I have the utmost respect for the abilities of Moscow PD. We're very close here. Our communities are very close. They've called in the appropriate resources, Idaho State Police and the FBI, for assistance. So I'm confident they're conducting a competent and thorough investigation.
Well, we certainly hope so. That is, as I said, the ultimate goal. Chief Jenkins, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nicole.
And News Nation's coverage